Hi everyone, my name is Khulan Myagmardorj. I am a software developer at Goldman with our GS Accelerate business. And thank you so much to the OpenFin team for having me here and for organizing this awesome event. This is my third time attending and it only gets better every year. So I'm really excited to be here. So let's talk about building native applications, and native used loosely, as I'm sure you guys kind of assumed, considering we're at a JavaScript conference. I'm here today to talk to you guys about how and why right now is actually one of the best times to deliver a native experience for your application. So before we discuss the now part of why now, let's first start by talking about just the why. Right, so why would you even want to deliver a native experience? I think a lot of us probably have already thought about this at one point of time, but I think sometimes it can be hard to really kind of hash it out. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you would want to deliver a native experience, but to kind of focus in on three primary benefits here, all kind of centering around what your users want and your users' use cases. The first one being native device features. This one's pretty obvious. You have the capability of reusing existing native features and functionalities such as notifications, camera, screen sharing, or potentially native contextual menus, for example. So some questions that you might ask yourself: are there certain features on desktop or mobile that already exist and is supported and you would want to just leverage right out of the box rather than having to potentially rebuild and create it if you were creating a web application? Second thing, you have performance as one of the primary benefits of going native. Your application is so deeply integrated into your device, you're able to give a more seamless and integrated experience to your users. How important is it to deliver a highly responsive and application that's intuitive to use because people are familiar with a lot of their native devices, and the fact that it's always available at your fingertips. And finally, and I think one thing that a lot of people sometimes forget, especially in our world of always being connected and always being online, is offline capabilities and how much of a rich kind of capability you want to provide offline. Are your target users in areas with minimal or spotty connections? How important is it for your users to constantly be connected, and how important is it for them to always have live or completely up to date, to the second data? Some questions to ask. However, like all things in life, there are, no matter how many reasons there are to go in one direction, there are equally as many reasons to go into the opposite direction. And with true native development, it actually just may simply not be affordable for some teams. The number one thing or kind of drawback or barrier to going fully and completely native is code reusability. It will require a completely separate implementation, build, and deployment lifecycle than potentially going an alternative route. The second is knowledge reusability, and I think this is the one that we can all really feel and relate to. It's going to require a specialized skill in a particular language, such as Swift or Kotlin, and you may potentially either have to hire people who are already specialized in this, or your team is going to have a significant learning curve and ramp-up period. And finally, and most importantly, I think to consider, is maintenance. So assuming your team has the ability to ramp up extremely quickly, on smaller teams, the effect is potentially compounding, where you are going to have to rebuild that one feature across all of the different platforms that you're supporting. So considering all of this, why would we go native now? And it's because web development is awesome, and ironically, it's the answer to a lot of the problems that we see here. It can give us a capability to actually strike a balance between what we want, the benefits, and some of the drawbacks, right? Web development has come a really long way since the very first website was published in the early 90s or so. We have access to platforms and methods that can actually deliver a really close native-like experience, while we actually still continue to use the same languages, frameworks, platforms that we're already familiar with and we're already comfortable with. So we now end up with actually a high-class problem here, where we now actually end up having several options to choose from, assuming that we slightly alter the definition of native and we actually talk more native-like. To help us kind of choose the best method that suits our needs, we want to talk about kind of 6 primary dimensions that we would compare against. Code reusability, knowledge reusability, access to third-party libraries, performance, access to native device features, and how we distribute and share our application across the board. So you and your team have probably had a table that looked a lot like this if you've actually ever traveled down this path or wanted to travel down this path. But we'll be comparing across those primary dimensions, these 6 dimensions that we saw previously, and we'll be comparing 3 alternative solutions, and we're going to be pitting that against the true native kind of method. So like we mentioned with native, obviously, you get a lot of really great experience and feature richness, but one of the primary drawbacks is just the fact that it can just be too expensive to develop. The first one to highlight here is compiled native, or what we'll refer to as compiled native. So examples that you're probably familiar with already is React Native or Flutter, for example, where they basically build your application into a native application. So this is probably one of the closest things that you'll get to in terms of getting the closest to native experience and feel in terms of performance and feature richness without having to sacrifice a lot of that knowledge and code reusability. Considering you're still writing JavaScript, but at the end of the day, it still gets compiled down to whatever target platform that you're targeting. Hybrid applications are probably one of the more popular ones that you'll see. In mobile applications include Cordova, which I still and will forever know as PhoneGap. Ionic, and some desktop examples are our very own OpenFin, and also Electron as some popular examples. So this is basically a web application that's packaged inside of a native wrapper of some sort. There's still some kind of native application there, right, that displays your web app through some kind of a web view of sorts. But the primary benefits, and I think the main things that you gain from this, is the fact that you have complete code reusability, where you can truly follow the paradigm of code once, deploy everywhere. You have total knowledge reusability as well, considering your team is a team full of JavaScript developers. You have access to a whole assortment, the same level of libraries and frameworks that your team already uses. However, some drawbacks do tend to be you will lose out on a couple of the true native features and some slight performance. There may be some things, animation, that are laggy. Let's just say you'll never see a mobile game or some kind of some gaming experience developed as a hybrid application. And finally is progressive web apps, or PWAs. This is a pure web application. There's no kind of nativeness to it at all from a technical standpoint, but it acts and feels like a native application. And the way that this is able to be achieved is just due to recent advancements in the browser and the availability of service workers. These things have enabled web developers to be able to allow users to actually install their web applications onto their home screen, give an offline experience, and receive push notifications even. And one of the primary benefits of this is, obviously, first thing, distribution. There is no kind of concept of really installing from an app store. As long as you have the link, you can go ahead and that'll prompt you to download it directly. It does actually have desktop support now as well. It's not just a mobile thing. And however, a lot of the industries that actually are using this tend to be consumer and retail industries. And a lot of the primary kind of users of this are actually people who really need some offline capabilities. So there really is no one size fits all. Trust me, there is a reason why there are custom tailor-made suits shops and not one size fits all shops out there. It really just doesn't work. If I may be so bold to impose my opinion here, I would say that hybrid applications, and at least from my experience, has been one of the best things, best balances between, especially in the finance world, between being able to deliver a native experience but having an extremely fast time to market and flexibility. But it does require quite a bit of change to thinking and creatively thinking and thoughtfully thinking through your application design. So this is a really exciting time to be in the world of web development. I'm super excited to be in this world, and as web developers, we also now in today's world tend to also be mobile and desktop engineers as well. So thank you so much.